and they call themselves, they'll use the hashtag Utah Illuminati. Their own logo is an Illuminati all-seeing eye triangle.
Oh, Zion, dear Zion, land of the free.
This is Ben McClintock and Enoch Moore of DefendingUtah.org, where we think right and wrong, not right and left. Don't forget to subscribe to the Defending Utah YouTube channel. You can also find us on Spreaker, iTunes, and iHeartRadio. Check out American Appliance at AmericanApplianceHVAC.com or call them at 801-254-2566. We want to give some background before we have our guest on. The Buckshot Caucus was founded just a few years ago by a man by two people, Carl Downing and Jeremy Roberts. And they call themselves, they'll use the hashtag Utah Illuminati. Their own logo is an Illuminati all-seeing eye triangle. And Carl Downing, he's worked for the governor, and he's a bureaucrat in the Workforce Services Department now. But he pretends to be a Republican, but goes around on social networking saying that, isn't it great that Utah is less Mormon and more gay and more Democrat? And so this guy is supposed to be a Republican supporting Republican values, but his organization is actually involved in those things. And if you go check out the Defending Utah YouTube channel and check out Utah's Secret History, that's our video there, you'll learn a lot more of that background. But we want to get right to our guest, Laura Sanchez, who has some really deep information about the Buckshot co-founder, Jeremy Roberts. So we've got, again, Laura, thanks for joining us here on K-Talk.
Yes, thank you for having me.
So let's give us the rundown.
Well, it's funny because I had really only known a little bit about the Buckshot Caucus, but more about Jeremy Roberts.
Right.
I first heard about the Buckshot when I was at the state nominating convention in April of 2016. I'm a state delegate, and I was there, and I was handed one of those flyers with a list of endorsements from, all across the spectrum of people that they were endorsing. And I had never seen anything from them before, and the candidates on the list were very eclectic. I couldn't really see any rhyme or reason to it other than that they were all claiming to be pro-gun. And so I did some digging, and I learned that one of the founders was none other than my old friend, Jeremy Roberts. And that told me more than anything else I needed to know about this group. So, yeah, it's been an interesting year. I'd heard of and interacted with Jeremy Roberts for years before that on a neighborhood Facebook page, and I didn't know anything much about him other than the fact that he had a really weird sense of humor. One that struck me early on is almost rehearsed, and it seemed like a way to deflect and redirect conversations, take attention off the subject and put it back on himself, that kind of thing.
It's like something that they do very often to make it so they act like it's a big joke, that they're not really about doing the things that they claim that they're doing. They just act like it's a joke, and then they go and do it.
Yes, it's a very effective strategy, and as you were saying about Carl Downing, it's a very leftist type of strategy.
Right.
It's very surprising to see. But, I met him for the first time at our caucus night in 2016, and I was surprised because amongst the joking and the humor, he could speak somewhat intelligently about certain subjects and even with a sense of authority on some others. He mentioned the fight over the future of the caucus and acted like he was sorry about it, that specifically mentioning that he hoped this wouldn't be our last caucus and that we'd be lucky to have it in 2018 if we didn't act and do something quickly. And
well, that's what they pretended that SB 54 was the way to save the caucus, which was a complete and total lie.
Yes, and he didn't mention then that he was the one behind it. But after some digging even further, I found that he was actually the author of SB 54, and that his claims are that he did this to save the caucus. That
so we've got to destroy capitalism to save capitalism, right?
Yes, we have to destroy America to save America. Right. It was just so blatant to me that here I am one night hearing him telling his neighbors that he's pro-caucus, and then finding out a few days later that he wrote SB 54, and he saved the caucus. And I finally asked him, who did you save the caucus from? Yourself? Because who was behind Count My Vote? You are.
Right.
And so that was really just kind of a surreal few days, and in talking with him, he told me to Google him. I think he thought that would intimidate, but he just said, well, you know, I know what I'm talking about. I'm behind a lot of this. Why don't you Google me? And I did, and
worst mistake he could have done.
I don't know why. I don't know what he thought was going to happen. It was terrible. I did more digging than I think he probably expected me to do. It was evident immediately that he was not just perjuring himself to the constituents. I mean, he's done it time and time again. Going back all the way to 2011, I found a recording of him on with Rod Arquette claiming outright that he was behind the Count My Vote petition drive. And so this isn't just SB 54 trying to save it. This is all the way back to the beginning.
So it proves the deception that they knew in advance that SB 54 wasn't about saving the caucus because the people behind SB 54 were the people behind Count My Vote.
Exactly. It's just an incredibly well-planned, well-in-advance laid foundation. And, you know, this weekend of the Republican, the state convention, he came out on Twitter and said SB 54 did not go far enough.
Right.
And so this was just, you know, a foot in the door. But and the ultimate goal is to get rid of the caucus entirely.
So, and the Buckshot Caucus endorsed candidate won as chairman of the party, and he is so-called, quote-unquote, working to renegotiate SB 54. So it sounds like basically the renegotiation of SB 54 is to make it even more like Count My Vote or maybe even worse.
Yes, exactly. That is the ultimate goal. It's very evident that that's, you know, just their first step, and now they're going a little further, and they are, it just kind of feels like a takeover.
And
really
something that you had mentioned before, when we spoke before was about how they have all of their ducks in a row before they are going public about these things. And so when you start to see these things, you know, you kind of raise your eyebrow, and then they'll accuse you of having a tinfoil hat and all that kind of stuff. But then it comes out that it's actually true.
Yeah, it's not a conspiracy theory if it's a
conspiracy
fact, right? So but that's one of their tactics. Same thing with the liberals that they do. They call you crazy, conspiracy theorists, and it sounds like we are. We are using terms like, you know, Gadianton robbers and things like that, and they say, oh my gosh, you know, these people are crazy. But they have been. Yeah, they've been doing these things for years, and by the time you start to see the offensive moves, it's already done. I mean, they've already put their tentacles through everything.
Tell us about the story that you were in a conversation with him in a public, you know, forum about he claimed to be in favor of the caucus system, and then you caught him in a lie. Tell us about that.
Yes, I was in a debate with him on Facebook, and he was saying that, you know, these typical claims that he was trying to save the caucus, and that even running for a delegate position was one of his attempts to save the caucus. And I asked him, you know, what are you saving it from yourself? You're the one who's behind Count My Vote, and he would deny it. He would deny it flat out over and over and over, and until I finally was posting links after link after link of him and his own words, some recordings, some statements about how he was behind the petition drive for Count My Vote. And when I finally had him pretty much cornered, he said, well, then, so what's your point?
So you caught me in a lie, so what, right?
So now what are you going to do? And I said, well, I just wanted to make it, you know, clear that we're all talking about the truth here. And he said, well, I'm with, you know, 80% of the Republicans then, because most
So to twist it around from, yes, I'm lying, to saying, but it's okay that I lied because I'm in the side of the majority.
Yes, exactly. And you're with the minority, and you're the old-fashioned person, and you're going out you know, by the wayside. Right. And that's
Laura,
another
I'm sorry,
thing
we got to cut you off. Radio is too short.
Okay.
If anybody wants to learn more about this, please go to Defending Utah Radio and look at Utah's secret history. When we come back, there's been a controversy about Sheriff Richard Mack wanting the Patriots down in Nevada to go home. When we come back, more. This is Ben McClintock and Enoch Moore of DefendingUtah.org, where we think right and wrong, not right and left. Don't forget to subscribe to the Defending Utah YouTube channel. You can also find us on Spreaker, iTunes, and iHeartRadio.